Hey, it's Jaylatne, and video games are an incredibly complex medium. Like, I don't think a lot of people really stop to think about it all that much, because, video games are just like these little playthings that we spend hours of our lives in, sometimes exploring, building, murdering, and just having a plain old good time with, But ditch all of that, because games aren't small little things. They're actually huge and take years of people's lives to create. And it's not just a couple of people. Sometimes this can take up to hundreds of people. You got the programmers designing the feel of the game, the level designers creating the environments, the artists designing the characters, and the composers making all the music. And they're all racing day in, day out, a lot of time without breaks or sleep, 24/7, to make a game that some 14-year-old kid will call mid and refund on Steam anyway.
I've just started this Calypso. It is fucking minging. Paradise Punch Lemonade. It is fucking minging. Suck your dad.
So yeah, I do think we should unionize game developers. Thanks for asking. And with so many chefs in the kitchen, it's astonishing to me that somehow games can still look and feel like this. Video game atmosphere is an incredibly important part to making a game memorable. People look back on their time with a game and they'll remember the feeling first and foremost. A unique and effective atmosphere is an incredibly important part of creating feelings and emotions that players can latch onto. People latch onto these concepts, and it's why games like Banjo-Kazooie or Binding of Isaac are still talked about, and why nobody bothers to talk about shovelware trash like Eminem's Cart, or shitty mobile games, or Steam hentai games, other than the sheer novelty value. Now, video games are made to express a whole range of emotions, from fear, anger, sadness, relaxation, and this video is less of a discussion of what makes a good atmosphere, although I'll touch upon that a little bit, and more about which games' personalities and atmospheres stuck with me the most. I'm keeping the script loose, man. Fuck it, we're doing it live.
Fucking thing sucks!
Now, Team Fortress 2 is a very special game to me. It's a game I've put the most hours into, and the reason for my ungodly amount of hours that I've sunk into this game is not just because the gameplay feels so tight and fun, like your mom.
Well, let's be nice. Yeah. Let's be nice. We don't have to go there. I mean, you're not wrong, but you didn't have to say it. I mean, good lord.
Or because the Team Fortress suicide cult has brainwashed me into staying in this abusive relationship between player and developer forever, which it has. It's because this game has a personality and atmosphere that is unlike literally any FPS I've played. Team Fortress 2 is a game absolutely brimming with personality and charm that no other game comes close to replicating. Like, name another game where I can beat someone to death with a fish, coat someone in my own piss, and play as a black Scottish Cyclops decapitating people left and right. And all of this in just one round of Badwater. A good way for any game to establish its own personality and atmosphere is through its audio and visual design. Sound is so incredibly important, and TF2 absolutely delivers on that front, with its amazing voice talent.
Hard to stab a guy in the back when he's beating your freaking head in, huh?
You're making this so easy. I'm actually getting worse.
You should ought to brought more guns, son.
Its incredible soundtrack filled with a whole bunch of jazz pieces that make you feel like fucking James Bond. And those crunchy, satisfying sound effects that send dopamine straight to your brain. Now, there's also been this growing sentiment around how creepy source maps feel to inhabit when you're completely alone. The big empty buildings of GM Big City, or the barren landscapes of GM Flatgrass, or even the dark corners of GM Construct. But for me personally, I never feel that in TF2. A lot of that is due to the art style of the game, which takes heavy inspiration from artists like Dean Cornwell, J.C. Leidendecker, Norman Rockwell, and of course, Pixar's Incredibles, the best Pixar movie. The whole game is designed in this incredibly cartoonish way, from the exaggerated character models, the kick-ass fucking music, and even the Looney Tunes-ass logic. It makes it all feel like you're playing through a delightfully fucked up version of a Synchrovox adventure cartoon. You know, just with more hats and silly dances thrown in. Team Fortress 2's unique design has led to have this charm and personality that's amassed this huge dedicated fan base that up to this day, 15 years later, are still making fan mods, maps, skins, animations, and videos much like the one you're watching right now. And I'll be honest, this dedication to this game is super impressive to me. And also kinda scary. But speaking of scary. Oh, fucking hell. The best horror games build up this sense of tension that keep its players on their toes and invested in the game. Some of my favorite horror games manage to create this very palpable tension, and a very good example of this tension and release is with Dead Space. Inside the USG Ishimura, there are vents everywhere that contain a horrible eldritch fucking creature inside like a fucked up Kinder Egg. And these vents are everywhere, so that means you never know when a motherfucker's gonna decide to pop out and scare the shit out of you. The ship is so fully realized that it feels more like you're fighting tooth and nail to escape a real ship rather than just linearly progressing through what is just a bunch of game levels. Slenderman and the 8 Pages is another example of this tension being used to great effect in a very small indie game. You have no real agency in what you do except your movement, which is limited to looking around and walking, and maybe running, except you can't really do that for more than 3 seconds, because you failed PE class, because you never ran the mile, because you would only just walk and make everybody wait outside for you while it took you 20 fucking minutes, you fucking asshole. Because of this lack of movement and lack of any way to defend yourself, you're left with this feeling of disempowerment and dread, because you know as soon as you start collecting those pages, you're fucked, my friend. It's just a matter of how fast. All of these use tension and release perfectly to create an atmosphere in which you're never really quite comfortable with yourself or your surrounding. In between moments of bombastic screams and loud jump scares, there are these moments of deafening silence, making it so when shit inevitably does hit the fan, the fan won't be the only thing covered in shit. I couldn't think of a good transition, so here's a title card.
Pressure's us.
Dive on it.
Wait,
Depression and sadness in video games is not something that's really represented much, at least not as a central topic, which makes sense because, you know, I'm playing games to have fun, not process my incredibly intense emotional trauma that have occurred over the course of my life. And I just want to play the funny jumping man, you know? I just want to see him jump, you know? Get to the flagpole. My life is like a video game. But when games do tackle these subjects, they need to make sure they're doing it right, or else they run the gambit of coming off as unintentionally fucking hilarious.
Ethan! I know who the killer is, Ethan. I can prove your innocence.
That's why I think Silent Hill 2 is a perfect example of how to do depression and sad in an atmosphere. Silent Hill 2 touches on two very distinct atmospheres that I'm surprised horror games don't try to go for more often, which is not just of fear and tension, but of numbness and depression. Yeah, quick warning for y'all in case you're sensitive to talk about any of certain heavy topics. I'll mention them in passing, but still, I'll put a timestamp at the end of this section if you so desire. Silent Hill 2 takes place in a town called Silent Hill that feels like the physical manifestation of depression. It's completely covered in fog, making things impossible to see farther than just a few feet away from you. And that adds tension because you never really know what's out there. But it also adds this feeling of wariness and confusion. It feels like you're in limbo. It can feel like you're wandering around aimlessly, droning on, and when you're not running for your life away from monsters, you're walking, interacting with other lost souls like you. Silent Hill is the manifestation of your mind, and it can be so many things to so many different people. For those innocent enough, it's a normal sleepy town, but for those with lifelong scars that come with trauma, it can take the form of hell. For example, take Angela. For us, the town is as we see it, a cold, dingy town filled with fog and sexually suggestive monsters representing the main character, James Sunderland, sexual frustrations, and contempt and longing for his deceased wife. Meanwhile, for Angela, everything around her is burning. In a room that represents her trauma, you see her being attacked by a character named the Abstract Daddy. Surrounding her are flesh-covered walls with metal pistons sliding in and out of the holes made of flesh. It's heavily implied and confirmed later that Angela suffers from PTSD from being slept by her father and brother. This is her hell, and it's a hell that will ultimately consume her. Yeah. Silent Hill 2 is dark. Like, really fucking dark. Like, no, seriously, I can't see fucking anything. Hello? I mentioned before that horror games disempower you in order to create fear, and that's definitely something Silent Hill 2 does as well. Because believe it or not, you're weak as shit. Most enemies take a ton of damage, taking up to 30 hits with a goddamn wooden plank to finally do one in, which incentivizes running away rather than fighting everything and everyone you see. But this same idea of disempowerment is used to disempower you emotionally. Everything in the game is designed to mess with you and get you to feel, to some extent, the feeling of numbness and pain that James feels.
James! Wait! Please don't go! Stay with me! Don't leave me alone! I didn't mean what I said! Please, James! Tell me I'll be okay! Tell me I'm not going to die!
Now, I can't talk about Silent Hill 2 without bringing up the music, because, trust me, even though this game's depressing as shit, they've got some fucking bangers in here. The music in this game is vital towards establishing the mood. So much of this ambient drone music helps solidify the feeling of numbness and the sense of despair and loneliness that is so indicative of depression. Silent Hill 2 is one of the few games I ever felt really encapsulated the feeling of depression and guilt. That sense of PTSD that comes with a traumatic experience. And it's one of the few games that ever brought me to tears. And despite how sad it makes me and how unpleasant it can all be, I can never forget it. And I can never not love it. I still go back to that town. Sit down and just take in the ambience. The atmosphere is both so terrifying and so depressing, but in a weird way, it's also comforting when you sit back and just take it all in. Okay, so what did we learn? Music is good. Art is good. We should pay developers more. The atmosphere is really important. Oh God, somebody please save the planet. And sometimes you gotta just sit back and enjoy the little things, you know? Or don't. I'm not your fucking dad. I don't know how to end videos, so please like and subscribe. Bye.
Dark